That's a good take. What's your take on the big one though? That's going to be happening next weekend, UFC 266, because there's three big fights.
This weekend.
Yeah, this by the time the listeners hear this, is going to be a few days away from the actual pay-per-view card, UFC 266. But we got three big fights, but the entire main card is pretty good as well.
Well, let's do you want to go through the main card and just talk about the fights we want to talk about real quick for the listeners?
Let's just start with the main event. Let's do it.
All right. So we got the main event next week, listeners. It is UFC 266. An interesting matchup between the champion, Alexander Volkanovski, and the challenger, T-City himself, Brian Ortega.
I got Volkanovski in this one. I mean, Brian Ortega, I mean, he's made his path before, but I don't know. I just see Volkanovski coming away with the win on this one.
I'm actually going to go with Ortega. He's the underdog currently. I think he has enough striking to keep Volkanovski at bay, but at the same time, I think like if the fight does get to the ground, I think his jiu-jitsu will play a serious factor. I think Volkanovski is a jack of all trades, but he's not he's a master
of none.
Right. But I think he's really good at strategies and game plan. Like he'll go in there and his team knows what the fuck to do. Hey, we game plan. That's how they were able to beat Max twice, because Volkanovski can also adjust as well. He's pretty good at that. So let's not take that away. I just think Brian Ortega is the better fighter, but I think it's just really going to come down to who does have the better game plan between the two, really. Volkanovski could very well implement his very well. He does have better wrestling, but his wrestling isn't like a world-class, isn't like a Khabib, right? And the reason why I'm mentioning Khabib, that's the only person I could think of the top of my head right now in the lighter weight classes was dominant wrestling. And I'm pretty sure let me bring that back. Chad Mendes, he used to be a 145er. And Chad Mendes, he was a good wrestler. He's known for his wrestling as well. But I don't think Volkanovski is that type of fighter where wrestling is put first. I think he's more like, hey, I'm going to stand and not bang, but I'm going to stand and trade with you if I need to, but I'll get you to the ground if there's an opening, because that's part of the plan. So I don't see Volkanovski using his wrestling like that unless he really needs to. And he's good at his wrestling. I'm not going to take that away from him. I just think Ortega has the better skill set. I think on the feet, he's a better striker. And if it goes to the ground, his jiu-jitsu will carry him. So that's it for my little breakdown.
I'm going to give the fight to Volkanovski. I think that this fight might be a little easier to game plan for than Max. And I think that Max is something like, because he was able to actually game plan for Max twice the way he was, even though the second fight is, highly debatable. I would say that I think that he can game plan his way around Ortega as well. You know what I mean? I think that his skill set is good enough to be Brian Ortega. Now, I mean, me personally, I'm more of a fan of Brian Ortega, so I would rather see him win. But at the same point in time, I think Volkanovski takes it by decision.
All right. So what you think about the co-main event then?
What is the co-main event? The co-main event is Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy. Interesting fight. I think Valentina Shevchenko takes it easily, though. I'm not going to lie. I think Lauren Murphy's kind of earned her way to the title shot over these past, few fights that she's had. And I'm not necessarily mad at her, but I just don't think that she has what it takes. I don't think she has the skill set to go in there and beat Valentina, because Valentina's skill set is just so much better than hers. This is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, I got Valentina first round TKO or second round submission if Lauren surprised the first.
Yeah, I'm kind of going with a first round TKO, if anything, for Shevchenko. Same perspective of she's just more dominant. I mean, I think we had a conversation about this earlier this year, just about in terms of how we didn't really see anybody coming out and beating her anytime soon. So I don't really see Murphy being the person to actually be that change factor. So I got to go with Shevchenko as well.
Yeah. But for underdog batters, we go on Laura Murphy and she pulls another Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey. I know you're going to walk home with a bag. It took you 6 years to get a bag.
If she wins, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, still, bro.
We got another fight after that, and the return of Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler, the rematch. What do you guys think about this? This is, I think it's like, what, 15 years in the making or something like that, if I'm not mistaken?
Somewhere around there.
This is a pick'em fight.
Right.
And the reason why I say it's pick'em, because one, Nick Diaz hasn't fought in years. While Robbie Lawler has been active, but he's also on a severe decline himself because he's been in so many fights. He come from the same era of Nick Diaz, and he's been fighting, but you can't fight as long as you're fighting and not take some losses. And Robbie Lawler has been taking some losses because, he's getting older and these guys are getting better. The younger guys are coming up getting better. So this is a pick'em fight. I would like to see Nick Diaz win. I think we could get some fun matchups if he wins. And plus, it will look good for freaking pay-per-view buys and not that we care about pay-per-view buys, but it'll look good for marketing, I guess, for the UFC and all that. But at the same time, I wouldn't be mad if he loses as well. I really can't pick I'm for the sake of predictions, I'll lean over to Nick Diaz, but it'll be like a decision. I don't see him having an easy time with Robbie Lawler. I just don't, because he hasn't been active.
Yeah, and I think the inactivity is like a huge factor in itself. Granted, like I would probably want to go with Robbie Lawler just because he's just been more active, but like you said, he's on a decline as well, which is a huge factor in itself, especially as talent is rising. But in the same breath, this is someone that's from the same ilk as him, from the same time period. Only difference is he just hasn't fought as he hasn't been as active in the past few years. So I mean, I probably will go with Diaz, but it'll probably come down to a decision. Possibility he may be able to stop Robbie in the second. But that only really depends on what Robbie Lawler we get coming into the fight, because if his chin can take it, because we know his style. His style is stand and bang, and we know neither one of these fighters are going to back up once the bell rings. I don't see the fighter saying like, "Oh, let me get on my bike." So it's very possible that this fight could go into this Diaz could end Lawler by the second round, but a safe bet, I would just say Diaz by decision.
Yeah. Now, this is a 5-round fight as well.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, so it's going to be they're treating it like Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards.
I don't know how they do it either, man. I don't know how they do it. Just don't question it.
Listen, man, I mean, it's not the same. It's not the same as boxing, but listen, I need Cozy to get on his soapbox at some point.
We might have to get to that day one day.
Yeah. Why are we having a 5-round fight?
Or two guys are nowhere near a title.
A grudge match.
No.
I don't even think it's a grudge match.
Not even.
Yeah.
I think they were both chilling at home peacefully.
Yeah. Easily. Dana was probably like, yo, listen, I need to fill someone out on this card. What do you guys think? Lawler said he's down to fight anybody.
No, that's not the way it happened. Dana was like, hey, look, Nick, what do you want? Like, what do you want? He's like, look, I'm not coming back unless you give me this amount of money and it's 5 rounds. He's like, all right. I'll make it happen. And that's what happened. This hasn't happened for anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Only for Diaz and Connor, the Diaz brothers and Connor.
And that's it.
Yeah.
It might happen for Brock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it might happen for Brock Lesnar. Exactly. Yeah.
So the way, my bad, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just thinking that's just so scammy. That's all, man.
The way I see this fight going down, I think about it. I'm going to choose Nick Diaz. I don't care because I'm hoping that he comes out of his hiatus and he's able to go and, essentially have the better skill set than Robbie Lawler, which I feel like if Nick Diaz was active, he would. But I mean, he hasn't been active for, quite a bit of time. So Who knows how this fight's actually going to go? But I want Nick Diaz to win because I want Nick Diaz to win. Shouts out to Robbie Lawler, though, but I don't want him to win this fight. So it just is what it is.
I mean, and like Lau said, though, if Diaz wins, I think it makes it more interesting just because of we know at that point, we know he's not going to be a one and done.
Exactly.
He's going to want to fight again. And
I would hope.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I just hope they don't. I hope they just don't try to catapult him up and try to get him as close to a top 5 fight as possible. Or
you know what's going to happen if Nick wins, Jorge Masvidal BMF fight, or Nick versus Usman.
I'm telling you,
that's a scam. If he's fighting Usman, if he finds himself fighting for any belt, any type of belt, this is a sham. This is the same sham that Lau talks about in boxing. It would be the same exact sham.
I'm not going to dispute that, Vince. I agree. I think it wouldn't be fair for Nick Diaz to get an immediate title shot. BMF belt doesn't mean, as far as I'm concerned, Usman is the BMF champ.
Exactly.
As far as I'm concerned. So as long as he doesn't fight Usman, I think the world would be okay. Honestly, what if they try to angle a fight between Nick and Conor if Nick wins? That one I think fans would get behind because it doesn't mean nothing for a title. It's a fun fight. Plus, Dana's going to get his pay-per-view buys.
I could see that. I could see that happening. And, Conor, could definitely be talking all of his shit and then try to angle another, Nate fight as well. So that's even double the money for the UFC. Why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting, definitely, if that's the case. But I mean, we all know Conor's going to respond at some point on Twitter during this fight. During or after this fight, he's going to make some type of response. It's just a matter of what. So
before we did you guys have anything else to say about that fight in particular?
No, I pretty much agree with what you guys were saying about Nick.
There's two other fights that I'm looking forward to on this this card, and they're actually not on the main card. They're the return of Dan Hooker, and there's another fight with a woman flyweight. Her name is Manon Fiorot, I think is the right way to pronounce her name. She's an up-and-comer, and I'm curious to see what she's going to do against her opponent.
The only other fight that the main card is pretty good. It's a solid main card.
It is.
But I'm actually looking forward to the Cynthia Cavill versus Jessica Andrade fight. Because every time Jessica Andrade fights outside of Valentina, it looks like she's on the verge of knocking out her opponents, beating them up to a pulp, et cetera, et cetera. But Cynthia Cavill, she's a dog. She can fight.
Yep.
Even though I believe she is the underdog in this fight, I wouldn't be quick to count her out. I think that's going to be I think that fun is fun. That fun. I think that fight is actually a more competitive fight than Shevchenko and Lauren Murphy, in my opinion.
Yeah, that fight might be back and forth, and I'm curious to see. That fight's going to mean a lot for, who goes forward as far as towards the title shot. You know what I mean? Jessica Andrade is always around the title.
Yeah. Even though she just lost.
Right.
She got taken to school.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we kind of had that conversation before, though.
Yeah.
So I didn't even recognize that this fight was on this card. But yeah, from just looking at both fighters, I'd probably go with Cynthia Cavallo on that one. But Cavill. How?
Calvillo.
Yeah.
Calvillo.
That's what I said. Calvillo.
I thought you said Calvillo. My bad. I was trying to correct. My bad.
Calvillo. But nah, I don't know. It'll be interesting, definitely with that fight as well. Because I mean, like you said, Jessica Andrade, she does find herself always looming around that number 1, number 2 spot, or just in contention for the title. So this should be an interesting fight. I think, and on top of it, I'd rather probably see her lose, Jessica Andrade, just because at some point we know she'll be in contention again. And she's like, because it at that point it can't very different, but it can end up being one of those things where we had like DC and John Jones, where John's always going to be the champion. DC, prior to John being gone, he was just the number 2 guy there. No one else could beat him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see after this weekend.